In this video, I'm gonna share with you my experience when I was living and working in Beijing in China. Video is coming up right now. Hey, what's cooking guys, Marcel here again. Thank you for watching my video, and today I'm gonna share with you my first expatriate experience in China. It was in 2005 when I was working in Auckland in New Zealand. And by the way, if you have missed watching this video, then please go check it out. In this Auckland, New Zealand video, I was sharing my experience, and I was also talking about my interest which I had developed during that time in 2005 for China, for Chinese people. And it happened that during that time, one of my best buddies, his name is Moppy, he was a student in Shanghai. He is actually a German guy. He studied in Germany, but he had to do an internship in a foreign country, and he picked Shanghai, working there for Siemens, a very famous and successful German company. And I told him that I'm gonna visit him in Shanghai while I was working in Auckland. I made this promise to him without even looking on the map. You know, I thought, yeah, Shanghai is just around the corner of New Zealand, something like that. Anyway, I kept my promise, and I was very excited to visit my buddy Moppy in Shanghai. First time for me in China. I never visited the country before. I think it was the second time in Asia. The first time I been to Asia was actually the stopover flight. I had a stopover flying from Germany all the way to Auckland in New Zealand, and I made a stopover in Kuala Lumpur. And that was actually my first touchdown in an Asian country. So Shanghai was the second stop, and I worked at the Hyatt company. That's a big hotel company at the time in Auckland. So I got a room in the Grand Hyatt in Shanghai, and I must say this Shanghai experience really blew me away. That was the absolute kicker. The city is just amazing. I mean, it was 15 years ago. Everything was so modern. Everything was just being built. Everything. I mean, you have Shanghai is a big city. You know, I spent my 2 or 3 nights in the 100th floor. You know, the Grand Hyatt is a very, very tall hotel, so I could overlook from my room entire Shanghai. You know, it's a big city with like, what, 15 or 20 million inhabitants. And it has very modern areas, you know, and when I was walking through these areas, you know, I was thinking, hey, this looks like in Europe or like in America, you know, big shopping malls, everything is modern. You see very, very rich people, you know, walking around carrying their handbags from Louis Vuitton and stuff like that. Their Starbucks is there, McDonald's is there, everything is there. I feel very comfortable. At the time I was a heavy clubber, you know, I went clubbing all the time, and the nightlife scene in Shanghai was just great, you know, very westernized, everything for Western people, you know what Western people usually do. And that really shocked me in a positive way. And I knew, and I promised myself, Marcel, you know what, you are going to China. You actually will go to China. My next experience, my next station on my list is definitely China. And I was talking in my previous video also about the things in Auckland. You know, I wasn't really happy there, the housing situation and stuff like that. So now I came back from my trip from Shanghai, and I knew that's it. I'm done with New Zealand. I will move to China. And I started to apply. I called up many hotels in China, in Beijing and also in Shanghai, and then I managed to get a job as a chef slash manager in a, I think, 4-star city hotel in Beijing. And that hotel was the Presidential Plaza Hotel, and I just looked it up. It still exists today. I think it's a little bit worn out and maybe run down when I look at the pictures, because I just checked out the pictures, and It still looks like 15 years ago, so there was not much renovation happening. But besides of that, that was my first China experience, my first Asian experience. I remember when I arrived there, I was really excited. I was not only excited, but I also felt the pressure, because that was kind of a different situation. I was in a different position. You know, I was sous chef in Auckland in New Zealand. And this position in Beijing was a real chef position. And I was in charge of the grill restaurant, which was a Western restaurant. So I was not dealing with any Chinese food or Chinese cooking. They hired me to take care of this Western outlet there. And it was a grill restaurant with like steaks and stuff like that, you know. And they put me in charge there. But not only that, I was not only the chef, but also the manager. That means also the food and beverage manager. So I was in charge of the entire restaurant. And I think that was a little bit too much for me. I mean, I was always optimistic. I always was not shy, never shy to take on more responsibility. That's what I wanted to do. And in 2005, you know, when you would take my resume from that time and you would study my resume from 2005 all the way back to 1993, you would have noticed a continuous rise, you know, a continuous line up. You know, I made career, I always improved my position. And actually the step from sous chef to chef manager, so from Auckland to Beijing, was actually a very logical step in my career. That was nothing unusual. That's what I wanted anyway, because I wanted to grow. But you know, pretty soon after I arrived in Beijing, I could really feel the pressure from the general manager and also from my direct boss, which was an Austrian guy, very experienced, but they put a lot of pressure on me because the expectations were very high. And to make a long story short, because I don't need to talk too much about this, because it was a very short experience, after only 6 weeks, unfortunately, they kicked me out. Yeah, I'm not too shy to mention this here. This is what happens sometimes to us. You get kicked out, you know, you get fired from your job because we did not match. So the reason was, number one, I did not get along with my direct superior, the Austrian guy. We were way too different. I did not get along with this guy anyway. Number two, I was not ready for that job. My experience was not enough. You know, I was a good chef probably, but to take care of the entire restaurant, it means I was in charge of the interior design, of cutlery and other things, you know. I was not experienced in that. I never run a restaurant before, and honestly, I also was not interested to do that. I just wanted to focus on kitchen. I was a kitchen guy, a kitchen boy. I was a chef, so I was not interested. And then they hammered me from all sides with, chef, we have to do this, we have to change the curtains, and today we do some shopping and we go here, we go there. You know, I think most of my time I spent on the road just checking out Chinaware shops and furniture shops and stuff like that. And then I had a talk with the general manager also, and he advised me, Marcel, maybe this is a step too high for you here. Maybe you should go back and do something else. And I actually agreed, you know, because I was not happy overall. Shit happens, you know, this is how it is in life. And this was, as far as I remember, my first experience in my entire career when I actually got laid off or got fired. And it was a big shock for me. Remember, I was looking so much forward to go to China. That was my main focus. Yeah, I put all my energy into achieving that goal. I achieved it, but after 6 weeks only, I failed basically. That was a huge disappointment. I knew I had to go back to Germany because I had not much money saved also, you know, from 6 weeks there, what can you save? And I knew I had to go back to Germany, but I also knew I'll be back, you know, I will be back to China. It's on my list. I'm not done yet. That was my motivation, that was my goal, and I was very determined to return back to China as soon as possible. But other than that, I had actually a good time in Beijing because I did a lot of sightseeing, so at least I could see the Tiananmen Square and the Forbidden City, and I also had a very nice colleague in the room service. Her name was Cherry, and she used to always show me around the city. We took the underground train because she knew all the ways, you know, she knew all the connections, so she showed me around the city. That was very nice. And another thing happened when I was in Beijing, actually when I got already, I think, fired from my job. Once I got fired, I knew I didn't want to go home right away, so I think I stayed 2 or 3 more weeks in Beijing and just relax and sorting out myself and started to apply again. And during that time, I also met a local girl, a Chinese girl from Beijing. Her name was Annika. That was the good thing. You know, the not so good thing was that I actually fell in love with her. You know, falling in love is supposed to be something very nice, but during that time it was not really a good timing. I really fell in love and I knew I had to leave Germany. I had to leave China back to Germany. So I was really emotionally really in a mess. You know, I just lost my job. That alone, I was not used to that. You know, I never lost my job before. So that was a big hit for me emotionally. Then I knew I had to go back to Germany. I didn't want to go back to Germany. It was not on my list, you know, and I had to leave China. So that was the second big hit. And then I met this girl and I fell in love and I knew I had to leave her in like a couple of weeks from now. And I had no idea how to manage all this. Anyway, I'm still alive today, so there was no real damage to it. These are just the lessons and the experience you learn in life, and I kept my promise. Only a few months later, and some of you know the story already, I mentioned that in my previous videos already. Just only a few months later, I obtained the job in Hong Kong, and that was then a new beginning. And the experience in Beijing was also interesting from another perspective, because it was my first expatriate experience. What does that mean? Yeah, I worked in foreign countries before, like in America and Switzerland and also New Zealand. And these contracts I had were regular working contracts. That meant I had to pay my own taxes. I had to organize my own accommodation and everything else. Now, arriving in China and Beijing, I arrived number one in the first time in China, Beijing, and my first expatriate position. An expatriate position is always highly regarded because you get a relatively high salary. It's a net salary paid in US dollar. So the salary I received in Beijing was at least double the amount of the money I would have made in Germany. So tax-free money. Then they give you the flight for free. You know, the repatriation from New Zealand to Beijing, they paid the flight. I was staying in the hotel. I stayed in the hotel for free. I didn't have to pay anything. All the meals were for free. I didn't have to pay anything. Laundry, they did the laundry. I didn't have to pay anything. Health insurance, they took care of that. I didn't have to pay a penny. And then also once per year I was allowed to travel to Germany and they would have paid the flight. That is a typical expatriate package, as we call it. Very, very nice, because you actually can save a lot of money. That was really a good thing, because the first time in my career I really felt privileged. So for the first time in my life I could really taste the life of an expatriate and what it means to be an expatriate. They also organized Mandarin classes for us, so I actually was studying Mandarin, but only a few hours, so I don't speak much. I don't speak fluently at all. I speak a few words because it was necessary. The hotel was in an area of Beijing where there were very little Western people. I think that was the western part of Beijing, at the time 15 years ago. You know, Beijing was still evolving. A lot of construction was going on. The Olympics, the Beijing Olympics were just ahead, you know. So that was, I arrived 3 years before the Olympics, so there was a lot of things going on, but the area where I lived, there were only Chinese people. Nobody spoke a word English. Only in the hotel, a handful of people, of staff spoke English, so I needed to learn Mandarin. And when I remembered riding with the taxi was always a pain in the butt, because the taxi driver, they didn't speak English at all. I don't know how it is today, but during my time when I wanted to go somewhere, I was advised always to have a little business card and to have somebody write it down in Chinese characters. Let's say I wanted to go to the Tiananmen Square, then it was not just enough to open the door, go inside the taxi, sit down and tell the driver, hey driver, please bring me to Tiananmen Square, because he wouldn't have understand the word. So I was advised, and that's what I did, a small business card. I went to a colleague, a Chinese colleague, and I would ask them, hey, can you write down the Chinese characters? And that always worked. I went to the taxi, I showed the taxi driver the little business card, he could read it, and if he agreed to drive me there, then everything was okay. Actually, I was targeting Shanghai, you know, it was my priority, but I didn't manage to get a job there. Never mind, the job in Beijing was also fine, I was happy, but when you compare the two cities, yeah, it was a difference, you know. I was so focused on Shanghai, and I hoped Beijing would be the same, but it was not. It was a little bit different, but I must say the infrastructure was good at the time. They also had big shopping malls, and of course these tourist sites and tourist attractions. They have underground and buses and all that kind of stuff, and taxis, you know. So that was good. A lot of construction was going on, a big city, a lot of pollution. I remember, yeah, I have to mention that here. A lot of pollution. That was terrible, you know. And some days, when you looked outside of your window, you could only see smog, yellowish fog. You could barely see the sun. It was smelly. The air was smelling of gasoline and other stuff, and that was really, really bad. I think today it is not so bad as it used to be, and they improved a lot the quality of the air. Alright guys, that's it for today. If you want to know more about my travel adventures around the world, then I highly suggest to check out my book. It's called Slamming It Out, and it is available on Amazon and Kindle, and it is packed with useful tips, tricks and other tools if you want to become a better and more professional chef. And please also check out my new online class on Udemy, Leadership Skills, how to become a powerful team leader in case you are leading kitchen teams, either small, medium or large size teams, it doesn't matter. I have prepared that course for you. It's available on Udemy, and you find the link down in the description. Other than that, I'm checking out for today. I'm done for today. Thank you for watching my video. If you liked it, then please click the like button, give me a thumbs up. If you have any questions, concerns, suggestions, or anything else, then please leave them in the comment sections, and stay healthy, stay safe. See you next time, and don't forget, always keep slamming it out. Take care, bye bye.